So, hello, my friends. We are now getting to narrative number 2 of our Roman history, right? Remember, we talked about the deleting of 400 years of history. We talked about the misconstrued sort of conception that talks about Rome and talks about China and wonders about their relationship together, and not a mention of the missing link in the whole thing being the Parthian Empire. Okay, so we talked about the biases, yes, my friends. So, but I want to continue our story of Rome in this session. So I want you to keep in mind that I want you to recall the Indo-European migrations, right? I want you to recall sort of, the beginning of the Iron Age, circa 1000, and Indo-European migrations, the Greeks going to mainland Greek areas, right? And the Romans coming, populations who eventually became Romans, right? Coming to the Italian peninsula, and Italy is a peninsula because it's, surrounded in three sides by waters, right? So these populations started migrating into the peninsula, right? Circa say, 750 BC, 753 BCE, right? And forget about this business of empire, my friends, because at this point we are, the last thing that we're talking about is an empire. We're just at the beginnings of Rome. So, what I want you to keep in mind is that, okay, we are talking about. Forgive me while I get ready here, right? So we're talking about, say, around circa 800, right? Circa 800. Remember, circa 800 is the dark ages of. The Greeks are just coming out of their dark ages. It's the sort of um, uh, uh, the, the beginning, is the Homeric era and the beginning of, the Greeks coming out of the Dark Ages, right? So 800 is also circa the time that the Carthaginians, right, the Phoenicians, right, set up Carthage, right, Carthage in North Africa, right, and and establish Carthage, right? And they're already, remember, from 1200 onwards, the Phoenicians are in the Mediterranean. They are forcing they are the catapults that leads to the growth of, to the seafaring sort of adventures of the Greeks. And we will see what role they played, the Phoenicians, and the Carthaginians especially, right, i.e. the North Africans, right, in the rise of the Romans to power. Yes? So this is how one can conceptualize it, right? Once again, right, Africa is pushing sort of, another civilization into the sort of into circulation, right? So okay, so now I want to talk about a little bit about the topography of Rome, right, my friends? So you imagine, we will see plenty of maps, right? Maps that are actually of belong to the region that we can see Italy in. But you see here, right, we will see plenty of maps. This is Italy, right? And this is Mediterranean, and this sea is the Mediterranean Sea, right? and as you can see, Italy is sort of halfway in the Mediterranean Sea, right? Yeah, between the Atlantic here, ocean, ocean, right? Atlantic Ocean, right? And Italy and Eastern Mediterranean, right? Halfway to Asia and halfway to Atlantic Ocean, right? So that's where Italy is located, and it makes a difference for the creation of Roman Empire, right? That Italy was so centrally located, right? So not only Italy was centrally located, but Rome was centrally located within the peninsula, within the Italian peninsula. It was at midpoint of the peninsula, right? And it had 15 miles of distance from the western coast, right? So here is Italy for you, right? You see Rome here, midway, right? 14 kilometers, 14, what did we say? 14 miles, 24 kilometers, right? From the from its western seas. The eastern seas are called Adriatic, remember? And the western seas, now you're really learning even more seas, my friends, right? Tyrrhenian Sea, right? It reminds me of um, ah, you know what it reminds me. Okay, Tyrrhenian Sea, right? So anyway, Italy also has many rivers, right? For one thing, one of the main rivers, right? And the river that was very, very close to Rome, and we will see its topography exactly, was the Tiber River, right? And you see, this is the Po River, which is very important, right? This is the Arno River, right, which is very important. Italy has a number of these navigable, right, and large rivers, right? Directly in the middle of it, my friends, right? Yeah, there are a series of mountains which are known as the Apennine Mountains, right? Apennines, right? And of course, to the north of Italy and continuing, into Switzerland and whatnot are the Alps, right, my friends? Right? And this is the Adriatic Sea, and this is where Venice is located, for the sake of your later histories, right? Okay. So the merchants within Italy, right, inter Italy, right, could communicate with each other very well, right? And armies and people could travel, right? And you always remember Italy always sort of is kicking Sicily, right, my friends? Okay, so these are the Mediterranean powers, and this slide was cut, unfortunately, but we will look back at these. Yeah, these are the red ones are Carthaginians, the yellow ones are the Italians, the green ones are the Greeks, right? And so on and so forth. And this is circa 800 BCE in the Mediterranean, right? And once again, here is the physical map of Italy, you see, and you see that to the east is Greece, right? Right? and here is Albania, contemporary Bosnia Herzegovina, and you see the Alps, my friends, right? You see the Alps. The Alps engage, right? The Alps go through, look, let's see. The Alps go through together, we'll see, well, you know, on the borders of well, in France, right, in Switzerland, in Germany, in Austria, right, all of these countries are along the Alps, right, some of the major mountain chains of the world, right, and you remember our islands, Sardinia and Corsica, right, my friends? Okay. So Italy was centrally located. Italy was, benefited from the mild Mediterranean climate, right? And it had conditions, although it was hilly, right, and mountainous. It had enough arable land, right, and a long growing season to cultivate a wide variety of crops, right? And because it was mountainous, and there were sort of woods in the mountain, it had timber of its own, and the region of Etru Etruria, yeah, around here, we will see it very right now, was rich in iron and other metals. So this is Etruria, right? Umbria, Latium, from where what you get, Latin, right, my friends, Calabria, Campania, and so on and so forth, right? Okay, these are the various populations of Italy, and you see where Rome is located, right? Okay, so agriculture is the mainstay of Italy, if you will, right? I mean, as I told you before, right, up to 1800, right, most of the population, even in industrial lands, right, up until basically recently, right, were engaged in agriculture. Most of the population was engaged in agriculture. So, remember we talked about the sort of chronology of the history of Rome and Italy, and remember that we talked about the fact that at first there were kings, right? There were kings of Italy, right? Well, what is the story of these kings, right? We'll get to, right? But the story of the rise of Italians, actually, we are told, right, goes back to the rise of Rome as a city, right? And the rise of Rome as a city is how should I put it? It's obscured, sort of, yeah, in mythology, right? And the mythology has it that, according to the popular legend, Rome was founded by Romulus, right? Who, together with his brother Remus, right, is cast adrift, right, on the Tiber River, right, Tiber River that is very close to Rome, as a baby, and then the two brothers are nursed by she wolves, right? And eventually they come, especially Romulus, comes to find the city of Rome in 753 BCE, right? a republic of farmers is created, right? So, and this history, right, remember we said goes from 753 to 31 BCE, right? But the first 2 centuries of it, remember, is of the monarchy, right? Belongs to the monarchy, right? 700 to 500, remember from last time, my friends? Right? And then 500 to 31 BC, circa 500 to 31 BC, is the Republic of Rome, the Republican so-called era of Rome. At any rate, so the myth of the foundation of Rome tells us that the city was created in mid 8th century BCE, but we know that according to the history of migrations and whatnot and archaeological research, right? We know that one of the 7 hills of Rome, the Palatine Hill, right, was occupied as early as 1000 BCE, right? So here this is an altar from Ostia, and Ostia is the sort of you know suburb of Rome towards the Tyrrhenian Sea, right? And this is, excuse me, an altar from Ostia showing the discovery of Romulus and Remus by a farmer, right? The shepherd Faustulus, right? Who brings them then to his wife, right? So, what are the 7 hills of Rome? So, Rome is constructed near the river, right? Tiber River, right? Look at it, my friends. Here is Vatican, right? In Rome. I hope one day all of you get to visit Rome and visit all these regions that we're talking about and get to travel, my friends, right? And strive to prosper so that you could travel, right, my friends, so that your horizons would become even more enlightened than they are becoming now through your education, right, my friends? Okay, so there were 7 hills of Rome, right? And you see the names of it, yeah, just to be familiar: Capitoline Hill, right? Quirinal Hill, Esquiline Hill, and so on and so on. And this is the Palatine Hill, right? 7 hills of Rome come together in 753, and the merging of the communities of these 3 mountains, right, uh, provides the urban nucleus of Rome, and this urban nucleus, right, was provided by the drainage of a swamp, right, on the site of the future forum, as we will see. Okay, so 700 BCE to 500 BCE, my friends, right? We are talking about the monarchical period of Rome, right? And the first king of this monarchy of 7 kings, right? The first king begins to be Romulus itself, right? The first king is Romulus himself, right? Okay, now the growth of Rome, right, and the centrality of Rome, right, and the fact that the Latin speech and cultural patterns, right, were typical of the indigenous population of Rome, led to the fact that during this monarchical period, right, Rome was able to actually conquer Italy, right? Rome was able to conquer Italy, right? So we talked about the seven kings of Rome, right? The first was Romulus, and the last, right? We will come to the name of the last, but the last one, right? Who was uh, Tarquinius Superbus, right? Was very tyrannical, right? And he was overthrown, and the monarchy was overthrown, right? And the republic was established by Brutus, right, the liberator, who established a res publica, right, the public, yeah, a public position or a republic, right? So when you're talking about, right, Republicans, right, we are actually talking, and with all the goals that they are acquiring, and all the conservatism of well, at least U.S. Republicans, right? In fact, their name means public possession. Okay, my friends, throw that at any Republican friends that you might have. That's a joke, of course, right? Okay. We agree to disagree, yeah, my friends. So, okay. So the last tyrannical king was defeated by Brutus the Liberator, who establishes the res publica, i.e., republic or public possession, right? So this is Rome at the beginning. Forget about empire. Well, the empire of Rome in the peninsula, right? And they have conquered Sicily and Corsica and the other island, right, my friends? And this is circa 218, the way part of Mediterranean stands, right? So, uh, when Rome is growing, right, circa, say 750 to 500, and is conquering Italy and comes to conquers even Sicily, right, and the islands of Corsica and Sardinia, right, my friends. The one population that they come across are the Phoenician red networks, right? The Phoenician networks that have actually connected all of the Mediterranean together. Remember, they went to west coast of Africa. Remember, they had gone as far as the British Isles, right? So the Romans, when they're beginning to grow, what power do they come across but that of the North African Carthaginian Empire, right? And if you look at it, yeah, between 264 and 202 BC, right? Remember, we are still in the in the Republican period, right? In the Republican period of the Republic, right? And Rome is growing, right? And it's 265 BCE, right? And Rome comes to Sicily, right? And sees, oh, there were Carthaginians here before, right? And the Romans take over the country, the island of Sicily, from them. These guys, the yellow guys, are the Greeks, right, my friends, right? And these our two islands are under, and they come and see that they are under also the Phoenician control, the Carthaginian control, right? And they begin to take over the islands from these, right? Um, Carthaginian possessions, right? I mean, look at the Carthaginian possessions. All of North Africa, right, which connects it to Central Sub-Sahara. Remember that always, right? All of North Africa, and this also, the Spanish Peninsula also is known as the Iberian Peninsula. Remember Gibraltar here, right? And you see the Phoenicians cross the Gibraltar, take over the coastal points of southern Spain, right? But by 218, they have conquered almost half of Spain as well, right? By 218, what? By 218, CE. Yeah? Okay. By the end of the Third Punic War. Okay. So the Romans and Carthaginians engaged in a protracted and bloody war, right, over the control of Western, and as we will see, Eastern Mediterranean, right? And they engaged in three wars, which are called excuse me, the Punic Wars, right? Here, the Punic Wars, right? 146 BCE. So I'm sorry, this is 218 BCE. Okay, my friends. All right. So, and of course, we remember this map, right? And remember, as you said, as we remember, right, we could recall that the city of Carthage itself, right, was found in 814 BCE, right? Okay, so remember, this is the Mediterranean, circa 390 before the Romans conquer even Italy, right, my friends? And of course, you know, from 750 to 550, right? What are we dealing with in? We are dealing with a New Kingdom, Egypt, right? 750 to 550. We are coming the archaic period of Greece. (750–550), Neo-Assyrian or Babylonian Empire. The Medes are coming there, right, my friends? Egypt is in its new kingdom, right? Of course, the Phoenicians, right? Right? So this is kind of the map, right? of the world, forget about 390, circa 750 to 550, right? Um, okay, so moving on, right? And this is Carthaginian Empire. So again, we're going to see the progress of the wars of Rome against Carthage. Imagine, look at the right, the possessions of the North African Carthaginians, right? And this is, we're still in the res publicus, right? Public possession, right? And that is Italy, right? Um, so, and we examine this map, which shows the growth of Carthaginian empire, right? And here, right, we have the Roman Republic, 507 to 31 BCE. They call it Res Republic because the form of government was established, right? A republican form of government was established during this period. But Roman democracy, right, was not really a democracy. For one thing, up until 220 CEs or so, right, citizenship rights, right, only belonged to the well-to-do of Italian societies, right? It was after 220, right, that citizenship was granted to all free adults, right, of and we are by 220 CE, we are in the imperial period of the Roman chronology. Right, my friends? We'll get to it, right? So not until then were all free adults granted Roman citizenship and all the benefits that accrued to one as a result of this citizenship, right? That's for one thing. The second matter is that not everyone, even when it was confined to Italy, not everyone was allowed to vote. Women could not vote, right? And about half of the Roman population were slaves, right? On whose back Roman economy right, rested, right? So when you're talking about Roman Empire, remember, my friends, always that the Roman Empire was built, right, on the slavery, on the back of the slave, on the back of a slave population that formed 50%, almost 50% of Roman Empire's population. Okay, it was not that, right, the Achaemenid Empire, right, which ruled for 200 years, right, with little, I mean, not little, but nowhere with little reliance on slave power for economic sort of flourishing, right? And this was not the case with the Roman Republic, right, and the Roman Empire. Okay, so when we're talking about Roman democracy, we have to always keep that in mind, right, my friends? Okay, so eventually, the Roman Empire comes to include all these lands, and we will see a map of it soon, right? But now, so agriculture was the essential economic activity on the role in the early Roman state, right? So status accrued to one, i.e., accrued to one means one gained, right? One gained one's wealth based on agriculture, right? Social status, political privilege, and all fundamental values, therefore, were related to land ownership, right? Originally, right, in the period of monarchy, perhaps even before that, right, the vast majority of Romans were self sufficient, independent farmers who owned small plots of land, right? But gradually, a relatively small number of families managed to acquire large tracts of land, right? And once that happens, they began, right, these rich landowners began to choose a council of elders from amongst themselves. It kind of reminds you of of our 21st century politics, doesn't it? Okay, my friends. Yeah, so much for progress. At any rate, these council of elders gradually, right, came to constitute the Roman Senate. And this is a 19th century European, right, of depiction of the idealized depiction of the Roman Senate, which continued right throughout Roman history and up until its very end, continued to be one of the most powerful, and one of the most powerful organs of the Roman state and Roman Empire, right? And the Senate, their members were constituted the senatorial class, right? So as opposed to this grandiose image of the Roman Senate, this is the actual sort of reconstruction of it, right? The third Roman Senate, which was built by Julius Caesar, and this is inside the Senate, as you can see, my friends. Yeah. So as you know, in the period of monarchy, of course, you needed to have a I mean, from the period of monarchy onwards, you needed to have civic officials, right? Like all the empires that we have thus far talked about, all the political systems that we have talked about, right, had a bureaucracy, had a civic system, right? Okay, and there was a hierarchy of them involved, and of course the hierarchy depended on wealth, right, my friends? But amongst these, the most powerful came to be eventually two councils, two councils, right, that presided over the meetings of the Senate and other assemblies and commanded the army. But these two councils and these officials changed every year, right, and they presided over the Senate. The Roman Senate was supposed to be an advisory council to the king, right? But gradually the senators come to make policy of their own, right? And gradually their positions in the Roman Senate, right, became hereditary. So you can imagine what kind of a democracy we are talking about. So in general, therefore, you could divide your Roman population into two classes. The class of patricians, right, and the class of plebeians, right. The Senate, of course, was a self perpetuating body, right? It served itself, it protected itself, it became hereditary, and so on and so forth. Their members served for life, reminds us of the Supreme Court, right? Brought together the state's wealth and influence and political and military experience. Obviously, the system was ripe for inequities, right? As it is, as it has remained into our democratic sort of idealized democracy of contemporary period, right? Inequities, right, are built into it, right? So eventually a conflict emerges, right, between the elites and the majority of the population, right, which are the plebeians, right? And this conflict that sort of ails Roman society throughout its history, right, comes to be known as the conflict of orders. It leads to laws, right, and the establishment of a tribune, right. It leads to the systematization of a further systematization of law, and the creation of a code of law by the Romans. But we talk about the Roman code of law quite a bit, my friends, right? And this is supposed to be one of the significant achievements of Roman society, which it is, right? It's codification. It was only like everything else, right? Of the histories of everything else that we have been talking about. It was a cumulative process, right? Cumulative process. One set of processes led to the other, led to the other, led to the other, right? You studied your first module, you studied your second module, you studied your second module, and your knowledge grew, right? Your knowledge has grown tremendously as a result of it, right, my friends? But if you would have just listened, right, to this one lecture, okay, you would have gotten all the information that I'm giving you in this one lecture, right? But you would have missed on the opportunity of cumulative learning, right, my friends? Okay. But we talk about law, but law, remember, we had the Code of Hammurabi already, right? When was it? Remember? Think about it. Remember, when was the Code of Hammurabi? Look at it, go check it, right? When was the Code of Hammurabi? When was the Persian laws? When did Cyrus and Darius come and say, okay, each population, you have to canonize your law. Write it down, right? So that we know what we are dealing with, right? Who instituted a law of the land, right? The law of the king of kings, right? So you have to keep all of this in mind, and then you come to the claim that the Romans contributed significantly to the establishment of Western law, and you would be correct, but only half correct, right, my friends? So the conflict between the plebeians and the patricians ultimately led in 450 BCE to the writing of the 12 tables, right? Um, Procedure for courts and trials, right? Debts, right of fathers, pater familias over the family, and here you learn how sort of patriarchal Roman society was, right? You're talking about land laws, acquisition and possession, public law, sacred law, and so on and so forth, right? And that comes to be called the laws on 12 stone um, tablets, right? And eventually out of that grows the tribune, right? The reforms, right? The reforms led to the creation of new officials, the tribunes, whose members were drawn from and elected by lower classes. But the elite although they were forced to give in on key points, found ways to blunt their reforms. Nevertheless, all of this brought the plebeian population of Rome, right, into the electoral process, right? Okay. The basic unit of family was the Roman society was the family, right? Several generations plus domestic slaves, and the oldest living male was the pater familias, who exercised absolute authority. Slavery was rampant in Roman society. As I mentioned to you before, fully 60% of the population, 50 to 60% of the population remaining in slave conditions through the history of the Rome and its empire, right? The patrician class, nevertheless, right, sort of established, or the upper classes established their privileges, and sort of brought the lower class populations into some semblance of having some semblance of status, some semblance of authority, by establishing between themselves and these people a patron-client relationship, right? What is a patron-client relationship? It talks about the complex ties of obligation, right? Yeah, between bound individuals and families. The clients wanted the help and protection of the patrons, who were men of wealth and influence. Each senator, for instance, had maybe a dozen or even hundreds of clients. Yeah, to these he provided legal advice and representations, right, physical protection and loans of money, right? The client was expected to follow his patron into battle, right? Die for him if necessary, support him in the political arena, work on his land, right, and even contribute towards the daughtery of his master. Okay. Okay, so this was the sort of mutual obligations that were established between the patrons and clients, right? During the Roman Republic, now going back to the history, it was during the Roman Republican period that Rome's empire began to take shape, right? In fact, it reached its peak, right, in the 3rd and 2nd centuries BCE, i.e., in the 200s BCE, right, and in the hundreds BCE, right? We are still in the Republican era, right? Um, and some people attribute this tremendous expansion to the greed and aggressive manner of the of the Indo-European migrant populations into Italy. The others talk about the fear, right, of a rather exposed society to foreigners, right? Um, so they set up on conquest, right, for the first, originally against the Carthaginians and Phoenicians, right? So this is, if this was the green is Roman Republic, in 201 BCE, all the areas, as I told you, yeah, the green are the areas that the Romans have taken away from actually the Carthaginians, right? And Spain and Gaul, right, and Macedonia and the coastal regions of the Adriatic Sea, yeah, my friends, right? This was the additions by 100 BCE. Yeah? Okay, I think I'm going to stop this video here, so that you can stop also here, and you could stop anywhere, right? And I will pick it up again because I don't want my videos to become more than an hour or so, my friends. Okay, so I'll talk to you again in a short while.